Your bike saddle is pretty key to getting comfortable whilst riding. But did you know that they used to be carved out of solid wood? Since then, it's fair to say that we've come quite a long way. Although it seems like longer ago, it was just 4 years ago that we were first introduced to 3D printed saddles, such as the Fizik One-to-One versus Evo 00 and specialised S-Works power with mirror technology. They had pretty naff names, but the premise was clear. You could now tailor every millimetre of saddle to be the exact density that you wanted. And that leads us to where we are today. We're going to go and see Phil Burt. He knows a thing or two about saddles, and he's got a new one to show us.
Cycling is completely symmetrical. As a sport, it's more symmetrical than anything else. When you walk or run, we can make fine adjustments in our foot posture and how much our knee bends or straightens. Can't really do that in cycling. So what often you find is that you see asymmetry at the saddle. These saddles really are like game changing from people who are really into their cycling but suffer from that asymmetry.
Okay, so spoiler alert, I'm not actually going to get to sit on my new saddle today. Instead, I'm at a fitting session for Fizik's new one-to-one technology. And Phil here is going to be making me a saddle that is quite literally like no other. Oh yes, this saddle might look the same as just about every other 3D printed saddle on the market, but rather than being designed to fit the masses, this one is printed specifically for my bum. You're going to have to stick around to see whether it's worked, but first, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let's deal with the why.
The thing is, you're what I call a macro absorber, so a little bit like Geraint Thomas, never gets injured.
Just like
Geraint. Ride half the stage of a Tour de France on the wrong bike, doesn't mean it was optimal for him though. So if we can optimize everything, then you don't have to worry about it. And then one could argue that it's prehabilitation. It's going to make sure you don't have any issues, rather than just get. And I can tell you now, as a lot older gentleman than you, as you get older, that bike fit window shrinks and it gets harder and harder. So the things you get away with when you're younger, you don't when you're later.
Oh, that's quite odd.
So after 3 months of doing that, I realised you really need to tell people it's about to happen, because they were like, "Wah!" Perfect. Just keep that. You're doing brilliant. And it's exactly what I thought. So, anyone ever told you got one leg longer than the other? Ever noticed that? So if you say one leg needs to reach the pedal,
I'm off to one side.
You'll see off to one side. And that's where your retool data helps us understand that. And then we know the reason why we would make you a special saddle, if that makes sense. Because the left-hand side has to do something different to the right-hand side. Does that make sense? Perfect, James. Just 2 more seconds. There you go. So, first and most important number in any bike fit, maximum knee extension. How straight or bent your knee is at the bottom of the side. Power. Left is spot on. Right's just sitting a little bit low. Knee forward a foot, the old plumb line measure. How forward? It's really quite forward on the left-hand side, all right? And it's absolutely fine there. I won't worry about it too much because you're quite pro-like. But then when you come down here, see the knee travel tilt and knee lateral travel. When you see someone's nicked a bike and they're like this, right? You're not like that, don't worry. But we all have a really big. But we can see that the left-hand side is doing twice as much movement as the right in terms of that's that view from the front. So exactly what you said, that left-hand one's doing more in and out. It's still fine. That's all green, right? It's very good. It's just different to the right-hand side, all right? This is your pelvis. So when you have see that V there that you have there, normally you see that, and that's the saddle pressure you see, is a bit of sit bone, because most people sit a little bit on the back, a little bit on the pubic rami. What you're doing is this is completely on the pubic rami, all right? So one can argue that a bespoke saddle for you is even more important. And what we do see is, I think, from that data there, your left leg is extending further than your right leg, and your right leg keeps out and moves around like this. It's almost like you've got a little functional leg length difference, so it means you prioritize getting the left leg to the pedal, which means you sit across to the left to help it, and that's why you get that. And that's why you get more left-sided saddle sore than right-sided saddle sore. We were discussing earlier, saddle's got a really hard job. It has to support you enough and you let you get out the way so your hips can move. So sometimes it's not only finding the right saddle for you in here that matches that, but then where you put it, of course. So I'd say to anybody, before you chuck the saddle away that you're currently riding or been given or trying to use, you might want to, for example, just play with the position of it, because that can make the big difference. And then you move to like the big recent thing we were talking about is Specialized came up with their short nose saddle, and Fizik got theirs, the Argo. It provides a lot of sit bone support, but doesn't have a nose that gets in the way. Can be really good for those long days in the saddle on gravel and things like that. But you all know people who fidget around in the saddle, and I say, do you find yourself pushing yourself backwards all the time?
Yeah.
And they say yes. They're nearly always on too narrow a saddle because they're looking for the support. And it's one of those wonderful things in bike fit where you go, here's the Terra Argo in 150 instead of 155. You put that on and they go, that's it. You wouldn't believe how many people come in. No saddle I know of that I've been involved with designing or ever put on a bike is designed to be used nose up.
Okay.
All right, but you see it a lot, right? Now people don't know what they don't know, but just by putting either your nose, your saddle flat will allow your pelvis to rotate further forward, and even 1 to 2 degrees of just nose down can really open up the hips and make a position feel demonstratively different. The thing is, where you were at the beginning, it's almost like a time trial position where you see huge amounts of pressure just right on the front of the nose, and that's fine for time trial. But it's a bit like an elephant standing on a drawing pin. So if you have all that pressure in one place, that saddle has to do an incredibly good job there. So if we can space it out, it's definitely longer, isn't it? And I would say, what's nice to see is that you still got the left side back, right side forward, that line of regression that we saw on there, You can see it's mapping the same thing, which because you're not going to change. The saddle can change, but you're not going to change. But what we want the saddle to do is accommodate you.
How long would you say you need to try this different position or a different saddle to know?
A very good question. So I always recommend a period of adaptation, right? So it could be the best saddle in the world for you, but it's different.
Yeah.
And we're swapping your shape and changing the material slightly, right? The material change is only going to be better for you. The shape is going to be better for you, but it might take some adaptation. So the last thing we want in the world for you is to go out on it and do 5 hours off the bat straight away, and then ride that, and then the next day you wake up with a sore knee or something because it's ever so slightly different. So I always say, look, ideally put it on the turbo and micro adjust it. What we're talking about there is the millimeters of difference until you feel it's in the best place. If you're on a turbo, you can do that within seconds, can't you? There's no getting on off. So that's the first thing. Second thing would be, I'd always say, stay beneath 2 hours for the first week. So if you're riding every day, just going out for an hour, come home. Any problems the next day? No. Just give yourself a bit of time, and if you give it a week or so and everything's feeling good, then go for it.
Do you think 3D printing has the potential to drastically change saddles, or do you think we'll just resort back to what we were using in the 1900s?
I think when Fizik started using the carbon technology to make their adaptive technology, that is adaptive. So the way it's laid up and the way it can cope with you in itself is a dynamic, and it's a bit more dynamic than just say standalone open or closed cell foam, so how it reacts. The big thing it does, even in the generic one, you have the ability to change the way that support is there and where it is, which is very hard to do with foam. You have to choose a foam, and you might choose slightly different densities of foam, but you can't change it every centimetre.
So this isn't just technology for the pros. Like the pros probably will be using it?
I think pros can use this, absolutely. I think completely invert that. I would say this is more for your everyday man, all right?
Yeah.
If you look at, I've worked in pro cycling for a long time, right? It's their job. So a lot of them put up with a lot of saddle discomfort, but don't really interpret it as a problem anymore because it's just their job.
Yeah.
It's like a workman having hard calluses on their hands. Doesn't mean it's right. But secondly, having made it to the pro level, a bit like yourself nearly, when you get to that level, you weed out people who have big problems get moved out and they don't make it as far. So there's a lot of really good cyclists out there who might have issues that have precluded them getting to the very height because they haven't found a solution for it. So I think exactly the opposite. It's almost like as we spend a bit of time with you understanding why you sit off to one side, then this is game changing. Well, why wouldn't you have a saddle that recognises that you put more weight on one side than the other and actually works with you to accommodate that? So I'd almost think I think let me put it this way: the capacity for improvement is more with ordinary everyday exercises than pros, because as you say, they're already pro, aren't they? So they might notice a little bit, but they're going to be doing what they're doing anyway. I would never start with no, you just need a custom bike saddle to begin with. Same process we took you through. Make sure everything's optimal, but if that's the game changer, it's then up to them. They can take that leap. Well, I got banned from talking about comfort in terms of, so we come up with this concept of the 3 pillars of fit. So you have power, aerodynamics, and comfort or sustainability, because Dave Brelson wouldn't let me talk about comfort for letting million riders. I don't care if they come, but Dave, do you want them to finish the race in the best condition possible to race? Yes, that's so. If you just change the words, and I would say
call it sustainable.
Sustainability or optimal. So yeah, I think this is the future of high-end bespoke saddles that help people out who've got issues.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
And I'm going to keep an eye out for the postman.
You'll enjoy it, I'm sure.
Here we are a few weeks later, and as you can see, my bike has been winterfied. Not only does it have these fancy mudguards on, but also Hunt sub 50 wheels. Review of that coming shortly. Obviously, I also have this new saddle fitted. So what do I think about it? Initial impressions are that it's actually quite similar to the one that came off the other Fizik adaptive saddle. As you squish it, there's obviously different bits that are different densities. This bit's really soft here, this bit's firmer, just like on the Vento Argo that came off. Where it's different is if you run your fingers down like this, you can feel that this bit here is much softer on my right thumb than it is my left thumb. So, I mean, I think that's proof that they haven't just shipped me out one of their other adaptive saddles, and this is a custom one to me. At the back, it also says 196, so I guess that this is the 196th saddle to come out of their custom 3D printed line. The only other difference that you'll actually notice is this little purple bit around the rails, which says One-to-One. I've done a few weeks of riding on it now, and I have to say, I think it is the most comfortable saddle that I've ever ridden on. I must admit, I didn't think that spending even 500 quid on a saddle would actually make that much difference, because I've always been comfy on the other saddles that I've used. Some people think that it's absolutely obscene to spend 500 quid on a saddle, and I get it. It is a hell of a lot of money. You can buy an entire bike for that much money. However, we were discussing the prices of other 3D printed saddles, 420 quid, 350 quid, whatever they are. This isn't actually a lot more than them, and it feels like you're getting a lot more. These adaptive saddles, I mean, that other one that I've been using has lasted 2 years and has no signs of wear on it whatsoever. So I'm fairly confident that this one, even though I've only done a few weeks of riding on it, will last the test of time. So would I spend my own money on it? Potentially not, because I've always got on well with the cheaper saddles. However, I would be so much more tempted to spend my money on this rather than lots of other 500 quid upgrades for my bike. This is really the first sort of consumer ready part that is custom to your body. And I think that's really exciting. Obviously the main downside is that you have to go to one of only 2 locations in the UK. And at the moment, I think that is the biggest drawback. Anyway, my full review of the saddle will be live over on the road.cc site shortly. Let me know what you think of this technology and whether you'd be tempted to spend this much money on a saddle down in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed this content, then please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like, and we'll see you next time.